We are awaiting the outcome of the U.S. Supreme Court hearing arguments on a case that really could change the landscape in a positive way or in a negative way around homelessness and the response that cities, especially on the West Coast, take to dealing with homelessness. And I don't think that I have to remind you all what's at stake here. This is quite literally a life or death issue, and we are seeing it every single day. This segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. So while you have these federal court rulings that have, in some cases, helped and in some cases hampered the ability of local jurisdictions to decide how they want to address the homelessness crisis. So while all this is being worked out, you have some cities that are really struggling to get people on the streets help before they die. There's really no other way to put that. And Burien, we've had on the mayor, Kevin Schilling, who's just awesome, lifelong Democrat, has been very frustrated with the government bureaucracy and the layers of politics that have, in his estimation, hindered his ability to help prevent people from dying in tents on the streets of Burien, on the sidewalks, in the parks. So you'll remember the whole, it's still ongoing, the whole tit for tat between King County and Burien. So Burien is in King County. They use the sheriff's office. They contract with the sheriff's office for their law enforcement services. And Mayor Kevin Schilling and the city council decided to pass an ordinance that gave them more power to tell people you can't camp here. You can't do it. And then the King County Sheriff's Office and the political appointee sheriff said, oh, we're not going to enforce your ordinance. We think it might be unconstitutional. Not only are we not going to enforce it, we're going to sue you over it and let a judge decide. That's the lengths that King County government and the King County brand of politics and progressivism, that's the lengths they're going to stop a city from trying to save people's lives. And that is what this is about. So Kevin Schilling, he tweeted that they lost another person in a tent in Burien to a drug overdose. He said, sadly, the city of Burien added to this toll last night. Speaking of, there was an article out about the 3 states with the most drug overdoses. Anybody? Yeah, Washington, Oregon, California. What do they have in common? Oh, the exact same political climate? Yeah. So Kevin Schilling said, sadly, the city of Burien added to this toll last night. A man overdosed in the City Hall library bathroom. We continue to have the county executive and county sheriff not enforce any of our public camping laws, leading to continued deaths on the streets. And this isn't the first time that there's been an OD related to the homelessness crisis in Burien since the sheriff's office said it wasn't going to enforce the ordinance. Burien News had an article out, since Dow halts Burien camping enforcement's second homeless death in 3 weeks. Another homeless man died in Burien. This makes 4 overdoses and 2 deaths since the King County Sheriff's Office refused to enforce Burien's camping emergency regulation. And they're blaming King County, and I agree. In this case, that's whose fault it is. So you've now had, again, 4 overdoses, 3 total deaths. There was the 2 previously. The mayor just announced the one, not only in a tent, not just a homeless person, but a homeless person who's living out in those camps who OD'd in City Hall in a bathroom, City Hall library bathroom. That's unacceptable. And it's their point that if you weren't, as the political class in Seattle, preaching to us from the mountain high about how we should deal with the homeless crisis on our streets, these 3 people would be alive. And to be clear, the people who have first and foremost responsibility for their lives are the people who are putting those drugs in their bodies. I'm not going to act like the government is more to blame than them. No, this is an individual decision. Whatever decisions you made that led you down a path where you're shooting up fentanyl or whatever, trank in a tent or in a city hall bathroom, you bear responsibility ultimately for dying from it. However, in a progressive area that pretends that this is about empathy, to be so unempathetic that they would take a city to court to keep people living on the streets, that's what I have an issue with. That's insane. And so this, again, and we've seen the video, our friend Jonathan Cho has covered this quite a bit, of what's happening in Burien. This is not a big city. So to have homeless tents lining just the sidewalks in a small area, their downtown is just a small area, the impact that that has on businesses, on public safety, on quality of life in a small city like that is huge. And imagine how helpless you feel as the mayor to say, we're trying to do everything we can, but we have a county executive and his political appointee sheriff throwing roadblocks in our way every step when we're just trying to get people off the streets to make sure that they don't die. Frankly, I don't know who has to sue or what they have to sue over. Is it the family members of one of these people who died of ODs? I don't necessarily agree with that route, but I don't know how to wake up these Seattle or Seattle-like politicians who don't see that this isn't empathy by any stretch of the imagination. And again, maybe it goes back to money. Maybe it goes back to, gosh, we get so much money that we get to put toward homelessness that we actually just dole out to our political cronies or to DEI groups so we can brag about how we gave money to, BIPOC groups to deal with this, and then we never hold them accountable. We just did a story, covered a story that local PBS covered of a guy who was supposed to be running a homelessness nonprofit for at-risk homeless youth who now has to pay back $330,000 that he misspent. Yeah, they don't want the gravy train to stop. So they're not interested in fixing it. And they're not interested in having mayors like Kevin Schilling be able to fix it either. That segment was brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org.